This is my 2016 Audi S3 Sedan. Not only do I love this car, but it's one of the best cars that I've ever bought. Although, it's rather pricey. Real pricey. It includes 4 doors and well enough space to fit you and a bunch of friends right in the back, unlike other small cars that don't offer any space. This one's got some decent legroom for a 6-foot guy. And also has decent space to throw a body right in the boot.
I don't think I'm flexible enough, but enough space.
So I've always loved this car, and to me this was the ultimate car. I always used to say that this mixed with the Golf R was a pocket rocket, but at the same time I've just come to the realization that this is nothing close to a pocket rocket. But today I got a special car for you guys that I really want to show you, because this baby over here, we're going to find his little brother. And what I mean by that is the almighty, overpriced, extremely quick, true definition of a pocket rocket. I'm speaking about none other car than the Audi S1. Enjoy. You guys always ask me the question of what I take when I go shoot a car. Now that all depends on what the shoot is all involving. So I have a shoot that's coming up on Thursday with a new launch of something pretty amazing, and the stuff that I'm going to take for that is pretty much everything in my bag. Now basically down over there is the 2 gimbals. So I got my one-hand gimbal as well as my full 3-axis dual-hand gimbal. And the reason that I take both of these is depending on what shoots. So in some cases I would take the bigger gimbal just because, you know, I'm going to be shooting some things that maybe more intense, maybe that I don't really need to be in front of the camera. But then if I'm, say, run and gun, I'll use the single-handed gimbal. And the reason being is because it helps me always have the relevant amount of equipment when it comes to shooting. I generally take everything. They always say pack light, but this is not a travel vlog. So when it comes to me packing, this one-handed gimbal works extremely well. And not only that, the one-handed gimbal is really nice to use, especially when you get so much camera shake. This is basically a Joby arm, but it's the massive one, and coupled with the 18x35 lens with the Lumix GH5, you guys know that the weight of this thing is insane. If you haven't, I mean, this thing is, it's one hell, it feels like I'm carrying a 5D Mark III. So it is insanely heavy, and yeah, I don't really often need it, but I always take one of these. You guys know when I shoot cars, I generally mount my GoPro on this. That's for a little session, but I generally mount everything on here. The only reason being is because when it comes to ducts or boots or any small, tight, confined spaces, it's always good to have a GoPro. So when it comes to taking footage, and when it comes to shooting pretty much anything, you guys must remember to always take as much as possible, depending on what you can do. So always remember what you're going to be shooting, remember what you're going to be needing, and depends on like the complexity of your vlogs. If you don't have a very complex vlog, then really don't worry too much about it. It doesn't really matter about how much you have. It's of course how you use it. You can even use your phone. These days, every phone generally has 4K recording. So it doesn't matter what you take, it doesn't matter how much you take, but really pack for the occasion and pack for what's going to be happening. So if you're traveling and moving around a lot, don't take a lot of stuff. A lot of people generally tend to take a lot of stuff, and then at the end of the day, they just don't have enough space for it, or they don't end up using it all. With me, I pretty much take everything because I don't know what I'm going to be using on the day, and it's always good to have too much than too little, in my instance. So today we are in Pretoria again, and we are shooting an awesome little S1. Now the reason I wanted to drive one of these is because it has the same motor as the Audi S3, and this is really cool because I thought, alright, if it has such a massive motor in such a small compact car, isn't that the true definition of a pocket rocket? The actual essence of, you know, a little pocket rocket is something that's small, nippy, as well as extremely fast, and that's exactly what we get in this S1. Now, driving it a little bit, you've come to realize that this car has a ton of power, but in consideration, it's only got 170 kilowatts of power. So they have detuned it, they have put a smaller turbo in instead of having the big S3 turbo. Obviously that might be a little bit ridiculous. Maybe they did it for eco, maybe they did it because they didn't want it really to compete with the S3, because if it did, maybe people would have preferred to buy one of these over, say, an S3, because technically the hatch has about as much space as one of these. Maybe a little bit more legroom, maybe half a foot, maybe a foot more legroom, and a little bit more boot space, but essentially this would be an S3. The nice thing about this car is that the other day I was driving a 323 BM, and I was trying to say how the driver experience has become lost, especially with Audi, and it's fizzled away because of all the technology. And sure, we have progression and we have advancements in technology, especially in cars and automotive tech, but at the same time you lose that driver experience, not only because the cars are so technical and it's just, oh wow, we've got so much power, but you also don't have the feel of the car. You can't feel what the wheels are doing in front of you. You can't feel what the car's actually doing because there's no body roll, because of the suspension. You have all these different settings like you're driving a Tron car. The technology has just taken away a lot of the driver experience. And today, driving this S1, I must say that I'm really loving the way that this car drives. You can really feel everything through your ass as well as through your hand. It's manual. It doesn't have space in the engine for the box, for the S-tronic box, and this is really nice because they throw a manual onto it, and the car just drives a whole lot better. You have control. You can feel how the car drives. You can change the gears when you want to. You can drive economically based on how hard you push on the accelerator, as well as how much force you're putting into the gears. So you have a lot more control in this car, and because it's so small, it doesn't feel like you're intimidated by it. It doesn't feel like it's too big or it's maybe too small. It feels just right. If you're living in a city, say for instance here in South Africa, we have a city called Cape Town, and it's really small. Tons of people park on the roads, and if you want a fast car, it's pointless buying a A3. Why don't you just buy yourself an S1 for pretty much the same price, or you'll save about 100,000 rand or so. Maybe you can buy a second-hand one. But with one of these, you very quickly come to the appreciation of what a manual feels like in a small car with a lot of power. And this was something for me that I thought, okay, well, it's an S1, it's kind of like a girl's car, and it wasn't so interesting to me. But after driving this, the feel that you gain from it is amazing. This car's dynamics are incredible. Overseas, they came out with an RS1, which was a concept, but it was also for sale. There was a limited amount that was for sale. Then they came out with the A1, which was a massive seller, and they always keep on updating it every single year. It's because it's for people that can't afford maybe a very expensive Audi, but still want the quality of an Audi, so they will buy themselves an A1. To get you from point A to point B, it's the perfect car to buy. In the olden days, there was an RS2, which was one of the quickest cars when it came to rally or like daily driving, and it was super limited. I think we only got, in South Africa, we got about 5 of them. I got the privilege of actually seeing one and almost being able to drive in one, and that little car was basically like a sedan with a back. It wasn't typically an Avant. It wasn't technically the RS6 Avant, but it was a very interesting car to drive or to actually see. And with one of these cars, I mean, the S1 was just like, all right, let's throw a whole lot of power into the small, nimble car, and let's see what it can do. And I must say, you obviously got your driver settings, so you got dynamic and efficiency and so on. And dynamic in this car, it speaks to you so well. You can feel the suspension tighten up, the car feels stable, it feels way more rigid, and it's such a pleasure to drive. And also, it's got an amazing exhaust note. You guys can have a listen. Yes. So going back, I used to have an RS3 hatch, and I never used to have a spare wheel in the back, and it used to be quite a problem. We discovered that today this car also doesn't have a spare wheel, as it doesn't have space because of the limited slip diff in the rear, because of the quattro drive. They've taken it out, so you either have to keep it on your back seats or while amongst all your groceries, which is not really the best thing that you want to do, especially when buying one of these cars. They do supply you though with a pump kit, so if you are stopped on the side of the road with a flat tire, you can pump the wheel up in order for you to get to a wheel company for them to fit new tires onto the car. But it's just such a hassle, and it's something that's quite irritating. And in such a small car, you kind of would expect that to be there because it's not like a race car, it's not an RS. But at the same time, it is also a sport. So it is Audi sport, and knowing Audi, they normally take out things to compensate for other things, but at the same time, practicality is not always there. The boot in this car is extremely small, and if you go to the shops to pick up anything, I mean, that's all the space you're going to have is for groceries. But at the same time, you don't buy an S1 because you want to pack it with kids and pack it with family as well as all your bags. You want to buy this because you want to get from A to B, and because it's an S1, you want to get to A and B extremely quickly. I'm having a ball driving this car. And the one thing about Basic Benjamin is, you guys know that I always speak about the driver experience, just to give you guys some buying advice if you're going to maybe go buy one of these or any car, or you just want to know how it feels without being able to drive it. One of these cars, if you want a nippy, small, fast car, this car is perfect. And it is one of the most amazing cars when it comes to tight, small areas or cities that you want to get around really quickly. And you want this car to stretch its legs. It really comes in from 4,000. I mean, if you see the speedometer, it goes from 4,000 all the way to 6,000 before it hits the red, so 6,500, and then it hits red. And with all that power, because it's a smaller turbo, it tends to boost a little bit later, which is quite strange, but when it boosts, it's extremely powerful. The boost is out of this world, actually, and it's really nice to actually drive a car like this because you actually get appreciation for driving a bigger car. Driving one of these, if you can put it in a nutshell, it's very nimble, very stable, doesn't feel like you're in a small car at all. It's super spacious, and the experience that you get out of this car is just like you're driving a small racing car or a small sports car. And that's something that every kid, or every guy at least, wants to drive.